Hey, everybody. I've got Justin Aylett with me again. Always love visiting with Justin. And today we are tackling the topic of rock and roll replacement singers. And there are a bunch out there that have, they've been with, in many cases, they've been with the bands longer than the singers were that they replaced.
Yeah, does seem like that, doesn't it?
It sure
A lot of
does.
cases that I've been with.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
who's the first one that comes to your mind?
Well, currently, I suppose is Arnell Pineda
Yeah. Pineda.
from Journey.
Right. They're back out. I think they're starting to tour again, and they've got. I saw there was a new single out there not too long ago. I can't remember the title of it, but it was okay. It wasn't. It wasn't
Right.
probably Journey's greatest of all singles, but it was nice to hear, and it sounded like Journey. And the thing that's so great about Arnell is he sounds quite a bit like Mr. Steve Perry, the man he replaced.
Sure. Sure. I think that's the thing they're going for too. I always thought Steve Jerry, who was with them
Yeah,
beforehand, he sounded a little like him too. I mean,
and he
um,
had the first
so,
name.
yeah, coincidence. I don't know,
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, he's been complimented by Steve Perry too.
yeah.
Um, Things might not be great with Steve and the rest of the band, but I know they've complimented each other.
Right.
Um,
When they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, 5 years ago, something like that.
right.
Steve was there, and he actually took the time to meet with Arnell
Yep.
individually, and he talked about passing the baton on to Arnell and just how happy he was that Arnell was there, with the band, kind of carrying on the tradition and the legacy of Journey. I think Journey's an interesting case because those songs aren't easy to sing. And you mentioned Ajiri. One of the reasons why I think he ultimately ended up leaving, because he had a great voice too, is that the the band these days they release new music every now and again, but they are primarily, the way they make their money is going out on tour and singing the hits. And those hits
Sure.
aren't easy to sing. They did a number on Steve Perry's voice. They did a number on Steve Augeri's voice, and
Yeah.
I think they're starting to do a number on Arnell Pineda's voice. He's been with the band since 2007, so we're talking what, 14 years now?
Right. Right. And Steve Perry was only with him what, nine,
Yeah,
maybe nine. Or, I mean,
he took a
he had
couple
a couple
breaks.
albums
Yeah,
in the '90s, but I don't know if I count that as continuous.
yeah, he took a couple of breaks. There were moments where wasn't sure whether Steve was still with the band or not, but he was with them all the way through. Boy, I'm trying to
Raised on
remember.
Radio.
Raised on Radio. That's no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no. There was another one they released later on.
Oh, there was. Okay, you're right. I can't remember the name of it, but yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of like a reunion album. It was like 7 or 8 years later, and I'm drawing a blank on it. Trial by Fire, maybe.
Yeah, that sounds right. That
Yeah.
sounds right. So see, I don't even know if he was around a lot between '86 and whatever that was, '93. But
I think they were broken up. There were moments where they got back together. I know they got back together for a benefit concert where it was just Neil Sean, Jonathan Cain, and Steve Perry really that was there. But there was a lot of hiatus time, let's say. And
yeah,
then Trial by Fire came around in 96 ish, something like that, somewhere in the mid 90s. And that was almost 10 years after Raised on Radio. So big
yeah,
break. And then they wanted Steve to go on tour, and he just couldn't. His voice, he had a number of health issues, but I think also he was very concerned about his voice and going back on tour and what that would do to it. And ultimately they parted ways. And that's when Steve Augeri came along. I think they'd interviewed and even tried out a couple of different singers, but Steve was the one who stuck, and he did a really decent job for a number of years for the band before. I think his voice, I've read reviews of certain concerts where towards the end it was just, he was not singing the way he had been singing.
yeah. If I know a lot of the singers, if you don't take care of it just the way you're supposed to, it goes. And maybe he was one of those.
Yeah, it's just a
unlucky
rigorous
cases.
touring schedule journey, right? It was hard to take care of it when they would be spending, every other night on in concert and on the road 3/4 of the year. So,
Right.
all great guys though. And Arnell, holy cow, what a great replacement singer they found in Arnell Pineda. Just marvelous voice, tons of enthusiasm. And, you get that feeling that he really knows how blessed he is to be fronting this particular band.
Well, sure, yeah. Dream come true for that. And another one that came to mind, I don't know if you want to, another one, I don't know if you're as familiar with, Dennis DeYoung was ousted from Styx.
Yeah.
And they did bring in Laurence Gowan.
Right.
And I'm not as familiar with him. Of course, they don't play as much. So.
Right. Well,
I was a big Dennis DeYoung fan.
Yeah, me too. I like Dennis DeYoung too. And I think the deal with Dennis is he's always been a showman, right?
Sure.
Dennis had his way. He would have, by mid 80s, he would have rather been on a theatrical stage doing big budget theatrical productions of plays that he'd written and those kind of things. A lot of his music, I mean, if you look at Kilroy Was Here, that album is very much a concept album. There's a storyline that kind of runs through the entire album. And if you see the music videos that they did for it, you can see where Dennis was going. He went off and did his solo album. I think it was, the single was Desert Moon. I can't remember if the album itself was titled Desert Moon, but I'm a big fan of him. Was it? I'm a big fan of his work, and I know he took a little time off to do some plays and that kind of thing. And so, Styx didn't want to wait around. They found Laurence Gowan, who had some hits over in the UK and in Canada, and he has a great voice. He doesn't sound exactly like Dennis DeYoung. He's not like Pineda, who is, kind of a, there are folks that say they can tell the difference, but I'll be truthful with you. There are moments when I can't tell whether I'm listening. If Pineda is singing a classic Journey song, I'm not sure if it's Pineda or Steve Perry, but with Gowan, you can tell. He doesn't sound exactly like Dennis DeYoung. But, the nice thing about Styx, too, is it never really was a one lead singer band, because you had Tommy Shaw singing for the band as well. He did a number of the songs or the band's big hits.
That's true. He was a good side vocalist. A lot of their bigger songs too, he did back and forth vocals. And all that. So he's definitely. I mean, and there was a couple others too that I had in mind. But if you have any more, you go ahead and tell me, because like I said, I have a couple other ones.
Yeah, I'll tell you another one that I really like, and I'm a fan of this individual. I'm a little biased because he reached out to me on YouTube and left a nice comment on a video that I did a long time ago that's no longer on YouTube. But a guy named Todd La Torre took over for Queensryche. Took over for Jeff Tate. The band had a big falling out in, it was around 2012, I think, was kind of when things finally came to a head. They'd been arguing for years, but Jeff Tate left the band, started his own version of Queensryche, and there were all sorts of legal. For a time there was two Queensryches out there: Jeff Tate's Queensryche, and then the Queensryche with the rest of the band members and Todd La Torre. And Todd is he's a talented musician, and he does sound a heck of a lot like Jeff Tate. Full of energy, great showman, and like I said, a heck of a nice guy. He reached out to me. My brother and I had gone to see the band, and I did a little mini review of the concert. He reached out and commented on the Facebook or on the YouTube page about it, which I thought was super cool, that he was, hey, glad you enjoyed the concert. Always good to hear when folks, post reviews like this, that type of thing. So, and not only is he wasn't playing drums that night, he was just doing lead vocals, but on the last Queensryche album, the drummer had gone on hiatus for health issues, I believe, and he subbed as the drummer as well, just a multi-talented guy. So that's someone that comes to my mind when I think about replacement singers. I was a big Queensryche fan growing up, and continue to be. I enjoyed their last album quite a bit.
Oh wow, yeah. There's actually Queensryche touring around where I live, and It's the one with Jeff Tate, like you said. It's called Jeff Tate's Queensryche, but
they've actually changed their name now. They legally had to change their name to they call it themselves Operation Mindcrime now.
Oh, I see.
After the album.
Update their website, I guess, because it still says Queens. But yeah, I haven't heard much of that singer, I have to admit. I mean, I like Jeff Tate, but I haven't heard them in a long time, either version. So
yeah. And I think you mentioned Kelly Hansen to me. Did you not mention Kelly Hansen when we were talking through email?
I've heard the name. Who's he from?
Kelly Hansen sings for Foreigner now.
Okay, so I remember hearing that in the chat or something, or seeing it in the chat somewhere.
Right, Kelly Hansen replaced Lou Gramm, who was the lead singer Foreigner, right around the same time as Arnell Pineda. I think it was 2005-ish, somewhere around there. Pineda was 2007. But
was it that?
And Kelly's done a great job. Just again, he's one of those guys that you really get the feeling, you get the sense that he is grateful for the opportunity. He'd been in the industry, he'd been with a heavy metal hard rock band called Hurricane for years, and they'd started to have a little bit of success, and their record label went bankrupt. And so, you know, again, he wasn't immediately then recruited into Foreigner. There was years of struggle with the Hurricane and other incarnations of the band, and ultimately, decades into the industry and hard work, he got the offer to go and sing with Foreigner when Lou Gramm decided to leave the band. The combination of health issues, and he was just really struggling to get along with Mick Jones, who's the other really creative force in Foreigner. And as a result, Kelly has been, I think he's been, well, if you think about it, 2005, 16 years with Foreigner now, and probably as long, if not longer, than Lou Gramm really was working with the band. And if you think about how much Foreigner's touring now, as opposed to when back in the Lou Gramm era, he's probably hit the road a heck of a lot more than Lou Gramm ever did. It was nice. Foreigner had their anniversary concert a couple of years ago, pre-pandemic, and it was nice. Things with Mick Jones and Lou Gramm had gotten to the point where they were again talking and being amiable with each other. And so there was actually a really fun concert I watched on YouTube. It's probably still out there, where Kelly and Lou share the stage with Foreigner and sing the hits. Wow. It's really cool. And Kelly is just as gracious as you think he would want to be there in acknowledging that this is the guy that paved the way for him to have the success that he's now having with Foreigner. It's fun to see that, and you hope that what you see on stage, that humility and that graciousness, is more than just an act. You hope that it's really there when they get off stage as well. Yeah,
you don't see that too often, the two coming back and with each other on stage anyway.
Yeah.
So, there's one that I can think of right out of left field that maybe a lot of people, especially your viewers, might remember. My favorite band is Uriah Heep from the 70s. They've been around over 50 years now, but in 1986, they had a lead singer join called Bernie Shaw, and he's still with them. About 35 years. He's totally obliterated everybody else's tenure with the band.
At what point is he no longer considered the replacement singer?
Yeah, I mean, 35 years, I don't think
he's the dude at that point.
Right, but they had a lot of issues with their early singer, and then in and out later on, but definitely he's one that comes to my mind just because I'm a big fan. So, but that might be a little left field for some people, not very big over here in the States.
Well, I think there's enough fans of bands like that. Other replacement singers I can think of is, I don't know the names of these replacement singers, but we had Rob Halford leave Judas Priest. I don't know if he's returned or if he's still not with them.
Supposedly he returned, but I know his voice is shot because I've watched videos on YouTube, and it's not great.
I think Bruce Dickinson left Iron Maiden for a while, and they had a replacement singer in there. And in both cases, I think the replacement singers for Judas Priest and Iron Maiden sounded very much like their predecessors. But I think there's the ultimate replacement singer, and not to take anything away from Arnell or Kelly or anyone else that we've talked about, Laurence Gowan. But the ultimate replacement singer for me is a guy who sounded nothing like his predecessor. As a matter of fact, the reason he's the ultimate replacement singer is because he took the band in a completely different direction. You have any clue who I'm talking about?
Oh boy.
Sammy Hagar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was a huge Van Halen fan with David Lee Roth at the helm, and I could not imagine Van Halen without Diamond Dave singing lead vocals. And then when news broke that Sammy Hagar was going to be the next lead singer for Van Halen, I was actually pretty darn excited about it. When that album broke, 5150, I was there as soon as I could to get a copy of it. I got a cassette of it, and it did not disappoint. That was just an incredible, I think of it as a debut album because it felt like an entirely new band. Yes, Eddie Van Halen's guitar work sounded very similar, but there was this introduction of synthesizers, and Sammy's lyric writing and his influence on the songs took him in a different direction. Instead of being this kind of cynical and snarky hard rock band, Sammy was full of optimism and talked about love and hope, and he still had humor, but they very much became a more radio accessible band when Sammy Hagar joined Eddie, Alex, and Michael Anthony to become what fans affectionately call Van Hagar.
Van Hagar, and that was mine. Was a little bit later. I remember Unlawful Carnal Knowledge.
Yeah,
but that was the one I listened to a lot.
Probably I have 5150 for me, but I'm also a big fan of OU812.
Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah, great stuff. And then of course Sammy had his own falling out, and they brought in Gary Cherone from Extreme, I want to say, and that was just a one album thing. And then Dave came back for a Greatest Hits album, then Sammy came back for a tour, and then Dave came back. You got a little messy and a little ugly there at the end, but when you think about what Sammy was able to do as a replacement singer, really just his impact and his influence on that band, it's definitely worth mentioning as we talk about replacement singers.
And he had quite a bit of good experience with Montrose, and so definitely a good choice. Yeah,
Montrose, and then his own solo career. I mean, I remember listening to Sammy just on the radio. They were playing his hits long before he joined Van Halen. And he wrote Rick Springfield's, one of Rick Springfield's biggest hits, "I've Done Everything for You."
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
I remember Red. I remember singing Red.
And you remember I Can't Drive 55.
Oh, of course. Back to the Future, too.
Yeah.
It was in Back to the Future.
Was it in Back to the Future, too?
Yep. At some point it was in, I think, in front of the Biff's Hotel.
All right. Well, this has been a fun chat. It's always good to visit with you, Justin, about anything, whether we're talking movies, TV shows, or in this case, music. So appreciate you bringing the topic up. And,
sure.
What I would ask everybody is, if you've enjoyed this conversation that we've had, give it a thumbs up, give the video a thumbs up, consider subscribing to the channel. I talk about music, movies, and mostly TV from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. You know what I call it, right, Justin?
The good stuff.
Absolutely. That's what it is, the good stuff. But most importantly, and as always, thank you so much for watching.